A lot of stuff has come out since we last talked. I don't know if Cowork was out last time we chatted, but certainly
Maybe
Codex and
not.
OpenClaw came out. And these are all just ways to basically get an agent to be doing work on its own on your computer, right? So with OpenClaw, it's a way to talk through WhatsApp to your coding agent that's on your computer, has access to do everything. You can tell it to do something, and then it already has permission to like search the web and create files and use your browser to go do stuff. And Codex and Cowork are similar, except you're not talking to them over the phone with WhatsApp. You're kind of controlling them more, and all of these are really cool. I To me, so anyways, what's your first impression before I say mine?
I think companies trying to find a problem, like or a solution, without really understanding the problem yet. Right? We're all trying to figure out how to be more productive, how AI agents can take all of our tasks, but we don't. I mean, I don't think there's anything super valuable coming out of it. Of like, yes, this totally changed my life and is worth it. Like, I see a lot more people using them and be like, "That's cool," but not good enough yet. And so they end up just dropping it. I mean, it's kind of like any habit builder or any like project management tool. Like, we're just moving project management or task management or habit management from a SaaS app that maybe you'd sign up to an AI agent that, I mean, it does more, but you still have to get it like fit into your routine and your cycle, and like you have to really work at it to figure out how it's going to actually really make an impact on your life. So to me personally, OpenClaw looks cool. The security issues scare me, and I just don't want to spend my extra time figuring out how to make myself more productive. I'm already fairly productive myself anyway. And I know it's like everybody will be like, well, you can just 10x your thing and you don't have to do anything. But it just still feels like extra work to figure it out and tweak everything and get it exactly how I want it to. And then I'm still spending extra money for all the tokens on top of that. Like, I'm like, is that? I mean, unless maybe somehow you can use your Claude Max plan, which I don't have because I don't want to spend $200 of my own personal money on it. So it just doesn't feel worth it for the investment right
Yeah,
now.
I think so. To me, the interesting part is you're able to basically tell an agent to go do something, and it has the full autonomy and the
Yeah.
access to do lots of things for you. That to me is the interesting part. The actual tech and what people are doing with it is not very interesting. I'm seeing people on Twitter saying, "Oh, like just try it and you'll see." But then they're like, "Well, okay, so what are you doing with it?" And it's like, "Well, I had it like make me a restaurant reservation. I had it call some like shops for me and find the nearest one, and I had it like do my fantasy football draft and all this." And I'm just like, I think that it's true that there is value here, but I don't think that anybody's actually doing anything interesting with it. And so that brings me to a bigger point, which is the this whole AI thing is the cost of tasks is basically going to zero. So that
Mm-hmm.
means what are you actually doing that's valuable? I think what most people are doing with Claude Code and Cowork and OpenClaw are things that are just not valuable. They are basically they're turning on the machine to watch it run because it gives them dopamine, and they're watching the gears turn, and they're saying, "Isn't this a cool machine? Look at the gears turn. That's awesome." But the machine is not actually making anything of value. So that's I think that there's value in that because it's a toy, and sometimes when we build toys they become something valuable later, like doing dev on video games actually produces like cool stuff for the computer or the internet or whatever. Like I'm not poo-pooing it. What I'm saying is what is it actually worth doing this if you're a busy person who wants to do valuable things? I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
what's worth doing is figuring out what's valuable to do, and then doing that even if you do it slowly or even manually. And I'm not saying don't use AI. I use AI all the time, But what I'm saying is, in this world where the cost of doing tasks goes to zero, what is actually valuable now? So I posted this on LinkedIn. Richard actually had an interesting point, and he said, he thinks it's overblown that like if a PM can use Claude Code to build something better than you should go be a farmer. So he said this stuff is overblown. He thought that non-technical people should be more scared than devs, and I thought that was interesting. But so my comeback to that was this is kind of true, but I actually think that it doesn't matter if you're technical or not. What matters is if you have the good ideas. Because now that the cost of tasks is going to zero, the cost of writing code, building applications, all these things is going to zero, it's going to matter who has the good ideas, not the one who sets up OpenClaw and does silly things with it.
Right.
It's like who actually has something of value. So how do you find that thing of value? Is an important question for all of us. And I think that like how you find value. Okay. So in my mind, that is, you have to be creative. You have to build things that don't work so that you can find one that does work. So you have to have maybe 100 bad ideas to find the one good one. You have to maybe do things that are slow, like talking to customers. You have to maybe do some things by hand. You have to read. You have to do things that don't produce instant dopamine hits. And I think when we get into this AI coding thing, sometimes it's like this dopamine hit to like build something really quickly, but that's not actually where the value is unless you first had a good idea and you're just executing it. And coming up with things of value is actually hard, and it's slow and it's painful, and you have to think.
Yep.
And that's something that going forward is never going to be out of style. AI is never going to replace that.
No. And it's been proven the more things you try to do at once, the less you're going to be able to think deeply about things, because you're splitting your brain trying to be like, this thing's doing this over here, this is doing this over here. And so even if we're passing everything off to OpenClaw or whatever, you're still having to be aware of what it's doing and whether it's accomplishing your goal and the final outcome, that you're splitting your brain across 10 to 15 different things versus focusing deeply on one thing. And so, I think the value is realizing when you're just spinning your wheels on pointless tasks. And we used to do this even before AI, right? Like you can say like, oh, I feel like I need to go do this and this, but it's not actually providing value to your business or to your project. It just feels like something that you need to do.
It
right?
feels good to check off a to-do, but you're not
Right.
actually doing something valuable.
So that's AI on crack, or that's basically, right? So, and I think that's what we're doing. It's like, this feels so valuable. It's posting hundreds of messages on LinkedIn to the point where I'm getting banned, or same with Reddit. And I've got 50 new signups. But I'm like, are they real signups? Are they valuable signups? Are you actually hurting your reputation for your business in the long run by spamming everything for those 50 signups? But maybe you get them and then they die, and your business struggles to get real value in customers in the long run. Like, it's just all that stuff that we've yet to see it play out, of the real value of automating all this stuff. I think we've seen coding agents value play out, that it brings real value when you do it properly and you don't just try to throw up slop. But I think it's still to be seen for OpenClaw and Cowork. And I think if you ask Pete, who made OpenClaw, he'd probably say the same thing, right? Like it's just, they're tinkering, they're just experimenting and figuring stuff. And Kit's own even new app that's blowing up is called the Tinkerer Club, right? That's really what they are. They're just tinkering and figuring out and exploring things, which is great and fantastic. And we should be doing those things, but you don't need to be taking it as gospel of like, I have to be using OpenClaw to try to radically change my life or improve my business or anything like that.
Yeah, agreed. And that whole thing where the OpenClaw agents were like posting to Reddit and talking to each other was so lame. Anyone who understands how LLMs work saw right through that. Somebody told it to do that, and it went, and they gave it access to their account, and it went and did it. It's so stupid.
But it
is not AGI.
Agreed, it is. But you also saw Kaparthi posting about it that it was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is actually pretty interesting that they're doing this. And so like it's super easy to get caught up in all this stuff
Yeah.
and to discern what's just AI slop and what's real too. Like I feel like my whole Twitter feed is like, I did this and I got 100 signups. Now my business is booming. And now I did this with AI and my SEO. Now I'm getting thousands of clicks a day. I'm like, I really, are you? Are you really? Or is this just made up stuff? So, but it's just too easy to really, like, everybody's going to get hoodwinked by all this stuff right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what OpenClaw was. I mean, it even made it into like, I follow this guy, Mo News. Have you heard of him?
No.
He does like a big Instagram, but he's like very unbiased, super good reporter. And he was even reporting on Moltbook, or was that what it was called? Yeah. And how like the AI agents were talking about it. But to his credit, he was like, oh, actually people on Twitter are calling it out, and being like, it's not really. Plus major security issues. I mean, that whole thing was vibe coded too. Like it was leaking API credentials and
Mm-hmm.
everything and secrets for every single user. That was super easy to get. So yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. So we've seen more layoffs recently. Meta had a bunch from their Reality Labs division. Amazon had like 16,000. Seemed like they were mostly middle management, although that hasn't been confirmed. Expedia had some. They didn't say how many. UPS and Dow. And the headlines were that this was because of AI. Clearly, it was not. This is just normal, like restructuring and leaning of certain divisions. Yeah. So I don't think really there's anything to that.
It's going to keep happening.
Yep. We did have a big stock, fairly large stock market move. I mean, the software companies are kind of getting killed right now from AI stuff and just fears, I think, on AI that it's going to eat a lot of software companies' lunch. And I actually think that that's true. It's just really hard to tell who the winners and losers are going to be and how much of an impact it's actually going to have. Because there
Yeah.
could be, it could be that, yes, it takes over and it Anthropic explodes or whatever, but at the same time, other companies that were doing SaaS and stuff actually continue to just grow at the rate that they were growing before. And like all the normal stuff continues to happen with all the AI stuff on top of it. Or it could be that it's going to completely destroy certain companies. We've talked about this before, but like we've seen some small companies like people who do coding tutorials, they're closing up
Yeah.
shop because nobody cares about how to code anymore. Honestly, I used to watch coding tutorials. I don't anymore. And then like, we've seen some other stuff like I think the proprietary software that we talked about is obviously going to be really hit really hard. But I think we just don't
Yeah.
really know yet. Investors are scared.
They are. Yeah. And I think, I mean, a lot of big companies are being hit that are going to be totally fine. I don't think like Figma's getting hit hard. I don't think Figma's going anywhere. Like I think Figma is still a super valuable company because I mean you need to use it to properly design stuff to hand off to agents to build. But if you want something unique and want something different from what the generic stuff that AI is going to spit out, you need to be doing designs and be doing creative work. So I think the whole, I mean, yeah, it's just again hype, fear. Anthropic CEO said something, and
Mm-hmm.
everything reacts to that. But it's a
Yeah.
lot of it's going to be
PayPal
fine.
got crushed too. And um, was that all from AI stuff, do you think?
No, I mean they had a CEO change too. I read there was actually an article that I was reading this morning about it. Did I send it to you? Maybe not.
Mm,
I sent it
I don't
to
think so.
somebody, but I think there was more. PayPal ended up missing some pretty big shifts, I think, and they lost a lot of trust with how they were like freezing funds too much, and you couldn't trust them to ensure that
Oh
you're
my
going to
gosh,
always
that's been
get your
happening for
money.
so long.
Yeah,
I was on PayPal like 10 years ago and they were going into my account and taking out money and I was like furious about it. They
right.
suck. They've always sucked.
Yeah.
It's
So
just
I
they're
think
so entrenched.
they just
you
missed
know?
the market on a lot of things over the past 10 years. And then there's a new CEO switch up and everything. So I think there's just
Right.
maybe some AI is driving that too, but I think there's more to PayPal than like to Figma. I think Figma is just getting hit by the AI hype right now.
Man, PayPal is so entrenched though. The fact that they have not been disrupted by like blockchain is shocking to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Stripe is obviously killing it and doing way better than them, but you would be surprised how many people are still not up on the times and how many like you can't actually easily send a Stripe peer-to-peer payment.
Mm-hmm.
But you really can't, especially because maybe there's a way, but I don't even know. And I've used Stripe APIs, and but with PayPal, like even my parents can know what PayPal is, and the banks support it, and there's all this stuff with the banking system that's so outdated. I feel like PayPal is gonna be fine. Maybe they're not gonna grow like quickly, but they're not gonna just like die or anything.
No. I mean, I think they'll be, I mean, maybe like international stuff or just, yeah, they'll just be like you use PayPal when you have to do this. But I think people using it as their, like businesses using it as their primary payment gateway is not true anymore. It's more like
Yeah.
they use PayPal for those certain scenarios when somebody really wants to use PayPal,
Yeah.
right?
So
Uh,
when I was doing App Presser, and this was maybe like I don't know 8 years ago or something. I hated PayPal so much that I turned off Pay. We had Stripe and PayPal that you could use. I just got rid of PayPal because I was so sick of it, and our revenue dropped like 30%. Like about
oh my
30% of
gosh.
people who used PayPal. And I don't think that's true anymore. I'm
Probably
pretty sure if
not.
you did that same thing now, you would not
You'd be
lose any
fine.
revenue.
Yeah.
And now there's like Venmo and Cash App and all that stuff. They're probably just getting killed on that stuff.
Well, PayPal owns Venmo,
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
right? But I don't know. I'm pretty sure
There's
that's right.
just other ways to pay now. But
Yeah,
man, even like how much I have to use Zelle for stuff because people are like the only way you can pay us is like with Zelle. I'm
I
just
know.
like
I
Zelle is the
hate it.
most archaic system of just like banking crappy software, and it's like the only way to pay sometimes. It's shocking.
Yep. Yeah, PayPal bought Venmo. They acquired Braintree, which was the parent company of Venmo, in 2013 for about 800 million, which seems
Braintree.
kind of small. Braintree's an old
Yeah,
one
I
too.
remember Braintree. Braintree was like the only way you could get a reasonable API for PayPal to do anything interesting.
Hmm. Yep. Now you got Shop Pay, you got GoDaddy Pay, Stripe, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So we got okay. We got skills. We got skills. We talked
Skills.
about these before. If you aren't familiar, skills are a way for agents to perform tasks without stuffing everything in the system prompt. So you could have like a markdown file that describes how to utilize a certain, command on the file system, and then you could have a script that could actually execute something, and then the agent could progressively or dynamically look that up only when it needs to perform that action. It could load the markdown file and then understand how to take the action. It could call the script so that it doesn't need to use MCP to have a bunch of stuff in its context window, saving you on tokens. And these have been kind of all the rage. So a couple different things. Let me share this article from Vercel. Vercel had an article this week that said in their evals, basically stuffing everything in the system prompt worked better than skills. That's what they said, which was like pretty damning for skills. But yeah, that's really all this article said. They did a bunch of evals. They set everything up to where they thought they had a really good baseline. The pass rate at the baseline for triggering this particular skill for looking up Next.js documentation the baseline was 53% pass rate because it just had some stuff in his training data apparently. The default behavior, if they did not tell the agent about how to use the skills, it was no improvement, which I guess is not that's a little bit surprising to me. But When they told the agent how to use it, it was 79% at the eval. But the big thing is the when they added the same information to agents.md, the pass rate was 100%.
100.
So
That's
a
crazy.
100%. So I mean, to me, like if we go back to like 79% pass rate, that's bad, but it's not that surprising in an agentic environment.
Right.
But 100% is like shocking.
Yeah.
So the what they did with this is they basically compressed it, and so they took all this documentation and they compressed it by doing. It says in here somewhere, but they basically use like, oh, it's right here. They use a pipe delimited structure that packs the doc's index into a minimal space. So they basically shortened it and used pipe separation to save on tokens.
Which is perfect for an LLM, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't need legibility
Yeah.
for an
But
LLM.
this makes me wonder. So I've been using skills recently, and I've actually found them to be work pretty well. So the way that I've been using them is not at all like this. It's just a RAG pipeline where I have instructions for maybe like more complex tasks that I want the agent to be able to do.
Hmm.
And I want it to be able to look those up dynamically because I don't want to cram every single thing that the agent could possibly do into the system prompt up front. So I'm using the term skills loosely here, but I basically would say, hey, here's your skill for walking a customer through setting up their new point of sale device, something like that, that has maybe multiple documents involved. It has some extra text that I want to add to it. Maybe it has a certain tool that it can call to get more information, something like that. So I found that if you say, "Hey, here you have skills," and when you need to do something, you can look up these skills. If the customer asks how to set up my point of sale device, it's pretty good at just going and looking up that skill. It loads in all that information, and then it walks the user through doing that setup. Works pretty well. But what I'm thinking here is I'm wondering how much stuff I can actually just stuff into my context window, into my system prompt, without actually losing any functionality because because of this article. So I don't know. That's just
Yeah, I mean, I think if your skill is purely just markdown content, maybe it's worth it, right? But if
but I
you're
have a
trying to have
lot of
like,
them though, is the thing. They're talking about
well,
one skill that they stuffed in
right, right,
the
right, right, yeah. I mean, I
system
think
prompt.
you had to take that into account. But like, yeah, if you have like a Next.js skill or a TanStack skill that you're always going to be working on an app in TanStack, maybe you just compress it and shove it into your agents.md file instead,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know.
But
It's
I
interesting.
so the way that I'm using skills, right, that I also put those in an MCP because I ran this by you as well because the way skills work right now is you have them in like local markdown files. You don't share them because
Right.
it would be a security risk because especially if you're running scripts and stuff. But the way I wanted to do it was more just information. And so you could look at this as like a documentation lookup tool. It's the same type of a thing. I just called it skills. I think the agent kind of understands that this is going to be a particular type of information that is looking up, which seems to be helpful. But then you put it in an MCP server and then you can use it across multiple agents so that then they can all have those skills and then the agent becomes quote unquote smarter, right? And I
Right.
think that it already has a documentation lookup tool. And I do think that this is different. And I think that it works to have both of them at this point. But I mean, we'll see what changes come in the future. But right now, I'm actually pretty happy with the way it's performing.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I've tested with skills, it had seemed to be pretty good. I mean, when it really boils down to is just prompt injection at the right time with more context and more tools that it can call, basically, without overloading your context. And
Yeah.
so I think anything that you're doing like that is a good thing as long as you're not confusing the agent with too many skills at once in one context window. If you're trying to have one session like, okay, use the front end engineering skill. Now do this. Now use the backend engineering skill. Now use the designer skill. Now use the marketing skill. And you're all trying to do that all in one context window. I feel like you will get some bad confusion from the agent for that. But if you're trying to really be like, okay, I'm going to be working on my API now, and you're going to pull in your I don't know, Postgres skill or something that you want to analyze your database schema and make sure you have the proper indexes and stuff. I think that's valuable because you don't really need to keep you probably don't need to keep information about Postgres indexes in a skill anyway, but for the theoretical thing or hypothetical argument, like you don't really want to keep that in your agents.md file because it's not a global thing to your app, right? Like your app is more than just a database. But
Yeah.
I think it could be good to have a skill that comes in. I'm still not really using them a ton. I think I'm trying to simplify my approach more and just use the models more instead of trying to have all these tricks and tools because I don't think they're going to be necessary in the long run. I think the models are just going to be smart enough that you don't need skills. You don't need to shove everything in your agent's MD, or you don't need tasks and all these Kanban views and filters. I think you just need a model and a smart model and it'll be okay. So I'm trying not to purposefully get hooked onto specific band-aids for right now and instead improve my prompting and like my overall usage and like relying on the LLM itself versus tools around it.
Yeah.
Not to say that they're
I
not
agree
useful,
with that approach.
but yeah.
I think the hard part is when you start doing things that are more complex and you need it to work right now and the models aren't quite there
Fair.
yet, you have to do workarounds.
Agreed.
And you know you're going to rip them out later, which is frustrating, but like you just need something that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
You want to show off Pi?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been playing around with it in kind of that same old realm of hold on, why can't I share my screen? Weird. It's blocking me for some reason, or I can't even click the button. Anyway, or you can share it. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Armin has been using Pi. If you're not familiar with him, he's a smart engineer. And then pull up that Pi link that I sent you earlier to pi.dev. Basically, it's another terminal agent, another coding agent. It's actually what OpenClaw is built on. It's just a very extensible agent and a very simple agent itself. So I would show my actual terminal, but since my share's not working for some weird reason, maybe we can do it another time. But I like it because I can actually just tell the agent what extensions I want to build, and it just does it for me. So it's like software building itself, and extensions are basically their plugins for it. And so you can build extensions to have like a review command or a handoff command or like custom providers. And so like at GoDaddy, we have our own custom proxy endpoint that we send everything through instead of going straight to Anthropic or whatever, a lot of big companies. So you're like changing your base URL, right? So we have our like my own custom Anthropic and Codex providers and all that stuff. And I didn't write it. I just said to Pi, build me a custom provider for Anthropic so I can change the base URL and pass in a new API token. And same thing for Codex. And I said, build me a handoff tool like AMP's handoff tool. And so now in my message or my prompt, if I'm working on one that has a long context, I can say hand off to another session and let's keep working on this. And it has its own version of threads. They are sessions, but it saves all the sessions and your agent can read your previous sessions as well, which is one of my favorite things about AMP and threads is you could give a thread, another thread reference, and it could read that. So Pi can do the same thing. So like it can actually pass in the reference to the previous session that I was working on, creates a new session, new context window, and it's a much better like handoff prompt than compaction and everything that you're normally doing with Claude. So I've done that. I have a review thing, like I said. It'll like you can have it to notify you, and it can like create its own TUI output. So like instead of having a specific plan mode, and I pulled this from Armin in his article, he has an answer extension in there. And so you just are talking and planning, but then for answer at the end, it'll prompt you with questions that you need to answer. And it gives you a little mini TUI input to input your answers for it. And so it's just a nice, cleaner thing without having to switch modes or whatever is right there. And I like it just
There's
because I feel
no
like
MCP support.
yeah, no MCP support, which I don't use MCP servers anyway for any of my local stuff. And I mean, I think they have
This feels a
skills,
little
but I
bit
haven't done
like
it.
it feels a little bit like a NeoVim type thing where you have a lot more configuration, which is a good and a bad thing. I don't know if you saw Torsten Ball's Twitter video today, but he was talking about how he was talking to like an engineer about how he wanted to tweak everything, and he's like this that's the old way of thinking. The new way of thinking is like the agents are just going to do everything. You don't need to tweak every like little thing.
Well,
So
that's why I like
how do you
Pi
feel about
though,
that?
right? But that's why I like Pi because I'm not actually tweaking the config. So like even for theming, it's fully themable. And so I just said, all right, Pi, create a Capuchin latte theme, and it did it. And so like now it's perfectly themed to fit my terminal theme and all that stuff where like normally open code has its own light and dark mode. It doesn't match your normal terminal theme, or same with Claude. It's a little bit different. Like this is perfectly matched to Capuchin latte. And I just said, build the Capuchin latte theme. So like I'm
Do
not
you feel like
configuring anything.
do you feel like you're rebuilding AMP though, like with the handoffs and stuff?
Maybe I'm rebuilding features or I'm just asking for features that I want. But it's beneficial in that sense too, because I mean, AMP is super expensive if you're like trying to pay for it yourself or something like that. So this way you can use cheaper models and still have some of the AMP features that are really good, like handoff and readable threads. You don't have like shareable threads or anything like that, like AMP does, but for your own context management, you can see like your session history. You could actually go back to previous sessions and everything too. So
It's
I get
yeah,
what you're
that's
saying,
cool.
but I don't feel like it's like NeoVim where I was just like configuring Lua files and like having to manually figure out all this stuff. I'm more of like just saying, this is what I want to build. And it knows its own extension system so well that it just goes and builds it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's crazy how fast this world is moving because we started out with tab Copilot tab completion, which
Yeah,
was like all the rage, and
I know.
man, it was really useful at the time. And then we had I think at some point like Cursor came out, and then Cursor was just like all the rage and still kind of is. But then there was like windsurf was the huge thing, and then anti-gravity, and then there's AMP and open code, and now there's Pi, and it's just crazy to see how little of a moat anybody has with AI right now. It
Yeah.
is like anything you build is like, even think about the Gemini stuff when Gemini 3.5 came out and it was such a huge deal, and then was it
Oh,
Opus 4.5 came out like
4.5.
3 days
Yeah.
later, and all of a sudden no one cared about Gemini anymore.
Yeah. There's
And
no loyalty
no.
whatsoever.
And there's no moat, and everything you build is outdated within
Yeah.
like a month or two. Even the models that they spend so many millions of dollars training. I mean, I think that they still get like usage of some of the older models, but like think about like GPT 3.5, like nobody is using GPT 3.5 Turbo anymore, and it used to be like all the rage. It's just crazy. It's crazy to see all this stuff happens so quickly, and to see like the winner of all this may not have even formed their company yet.
Yeah,
Which,
that's true. Yeah,
the winning product may not even have been built yet.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I think maybe surprises me so much is the lack of loyalty. Because I feel like as software engineers, we were so loyal to our text editors and to our tech stack
Yes,
or
like
our
Vim and
local environment.
Emacs, and even
Right.
when VS Code came out, there were people who were just VS Code.
Yep. But yeah, now you see like Twitter's like cursor's the worst. I can't stand it. And then people are like Claude Code's the worst. And they're like
Yeah,
2 days ago, they're like Claude Code is the most amazing thing. And so like
yeah,
people are just jumping on a dime. And granted, we're probably still even we're seeing such a small percentage of engineers too. Like maybe that's not a real actual thing that's happening and but it feels
like
like
in the broader
every
market.
right. It just feels like everything's on a knife's edge. Like it feels like Cursor could like make one wrong move and nobody uses Cursor anymore in like a month, right?
Yeah,
Or even to some point, it feels like Anthropic or OpenAI could just or Gemini could just fall off because they can't keep up and release new things every 2 or 3 months that are actually improving.
yeah. So speaking of this, the okay, there was a bit of a Twitter feud going on here. So Anthropic released this Super Bowl ad that was like, oh, like Anthropic runs or OpenAI runs
OpenAI,
ads, and it's such a big deal, and oh, we're never going to do ads. First of all, it's so stupid because they
yeah,
only run ads on like the free plans. Um, AMP does that too.
right.
If you
They're
just
not
pay, you
ads,
don't get ads. It's stupid.
and they're not ads that like interfere with the answer or the response from the LLM, right?
Yeah.
So they're not like changing the LLM's answer to show you a specific ad.
No.
Right.
Which that's probably coming, honestly,
Probably.
but it's not there yet.
But I feel like that's like Anthropic's push. What they're trying to like make people scared of is that like you're going to get ads as your LLM response instead of the real response. No. And so
Yeah.
that's their kind of like bent that they're trying to
Yeah.
say.
So Sam Altman had like a pretty snarky response, which is really not that interesting. But the interesting part to me was um, he said something about the users that tied into what we were just talking about. Blah, Anthropic, blah, blah, blah. Anthropic serves ads to rich people. Um, oh, more Texans use ChatGPT for free than total people use Claude in the US. I thought that was like the biggest flex. So we have a
What?
differently shaped problem than they do. Isn't that
I mean,
crazy?
I would agree with that. ChatGPT, no, but because the normal non-techie person has no clue what Anthropic is. They know ChatGPT,
Yeah,
but
that's
they're
true.
not talking to
Yeah,
Claude, right?
yeah,
They're just going to chat. My parents have no clue what Anthropic is.
yeah, that's
They
true.
just know
I
ChatGPT.
don't know why I never thought of that. Just in my little tech bubble, I'm just like, Claude
Yeah.
is everything.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
everything
that's
for
true.
us because of how much it's changed our lives. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
my wife is like, she would have no clue what Anthropic is if I said that. And she knows ChatGPT. But even last night, she was like, how's everybody getting these? Like, because I think it was something went viral for like making caricatures of yourself with ChatGPT, where you told it,
Hmm.
it said, hey, make a character of me in my job. And she's like, how are people doing that? So there are people like my wife that don't even know how to use ChatGPT
Yeah.
still and all that. So yeah, I mean, we are in a bubble, but I do
Oh
think
my gosh. Yeah.
OpenAI is still way bigger than Anthropic in that sense.
Yeah. I speaking of bubble, someone at work was like, "Hey, can someone release like a training for AI for the company?" And I commented like, the best thing to do is just like go use it, and because any training that we do would be outdated the minute it came out.
Yeah.
So, especially if a big company made a training for AI, like it would be the most useless thing ever. But
Could you imagine?
I was like, just go to ChatGPT or Claude and just ask it questions. Just tell it to teach you how to use it. And if you don't know what to do, then ask a question and build something, like build anything. And even if you don't know what to build, ask it what to build, and then ask it to tell you what it's doing. If you don't know how to build a website, ask it how to build one. This is really literally all you need to do is just talk to the AI. And it's surprising to me how few people understand this, and how good it is if you do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why you specifically get so much good output from it is because you treat it like that. You're not just like, it's not a magic genie of like that. You're interacting with it, you're talking with it, you're asking questions, you're validating responses, you're trying to learn your way through things, which is much better than just saying, do this, do that, and move it on. So I completely agree with you. I mean, I think all training at big companies will end up being AI based training in the long run because it's so much better. You're just
Oh,
going to
for
talk
sure.
to an agent that's specialized in that specific thing, and
Can you
it's going to
imagine how
walk you
good that
through.
would be?
Uh
Like
huh.
you're like, hang on, wait a minute. I explain this one thing to me again, and it would like be
Yeah.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
just going back to stuff for like holiday schedules or just like, hey, I know you like it told me about this when I onboarded, but where do I go to do that? So like all that stuff is going to be way better than all these onboarding videos or training videos or security videos that you get, especially like, yeah, like cybersecurity or everything that all the big companies make you watch. Like an AI is going to be so much better. Like it's going to be able to actually probably try to fake you to see if like a real world like social engineering thing where it could even try to social engineer you and like but you can all go back to it and be like what do we do in this case and it will be able to do that. So I think that'll get way better. We're just still slow
Yeah.
in all the adoption of it,
Yeah,
but
think
yeah.
about that. I mean, maybe even in interviews and hiring and stuff, maybe having an AI agent do the like technical part of the interview.
Yeah,
Ooh, I don't really like that idea, but it would work.
probably it.
Yeah.
I mean it probably would be pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I was almost had to give an interview, but then I had to go on vacation. But I was really being like, how should I do this interview for an engineer?
Mm,
And I
yeah.
really was been like, I think my first two questions are, what model are you using and why? And if they can't properly answer that, then be
Mm,
like, I'm sorry, we're gonna end
interesting.
this. Like,
So the only problem with that is it does disadvantage people who are lower income, or especially from countries where we
fair.
hire from, and they don't have $200 a month to spend on, Claude Max or whatever. So maybe not an excuse, but I do think that there's a bit of privilege we have to take into account there.
That's fair.
Because I hired recently, not that recently, maybe like a year ago or whatever, a great engineer who did not use AI at all because of the cost,
Mm.
and has since, I think, adopted it.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair. But I mean, I do think the interview will be like, if they don't understand I maybe the model doesn't matter, but like tell me how you use the models at least. And like if they're like, oh, I don't know, I haven't really played around with it, then I'm just like it's a
oh, that's red.
non-starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially actually now that you can use models for free with ads and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's really no excuse anymore. And honestly, even if you can't afford it or you haven't decided to pay for it, like that kind of disqualifies you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean it's $20 a month. If you're a software engineer at a company, you probably can afford $20 a month
Yeah.
for a Claude Pro subscription where you can use Opus 4.5. And it's enough to actually be able to be productive and get things done and learn how it
Yeah. Or
works.
use
So
the
yeah,
cheaper models. Like I'm sure
sure.
there's hosted ways to use like Kimi and Llama and all that stuff. Even though they're
Yeah.
not as good, you still have no excuse to not play around with them.
Right. And if they figure that out, if they've been like, I can't afford those other things, but I've been using Olama and self hosting it because I can do that, then that shows a whole lot of desire and like agency on their part to do everything they can
Yeah.
to learn and move forward.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
it's
will
just an interesting
say,
thought.
yeah, I will say we did have an episode a few episodes ago. No, in January, after we came back in January, And I said, hey, I'm a little like kind of concerned about my job because of Opus 4.5 and all the stuff that's been going on. I am not concerned about my job at all anymore. And I just, the more that I do at work, I am using AI to write all the code.
Hmm.
And I am still extremely busy. I am doing many, many things that the AI cannot do or cannot do yet, whatever, however you want to say it. Planning and strategy and communication and fixing things and directing it and coming up with new things to build. And what I'm finding is it's just increasing the amount of things that I can do. It's helping me do things that have been needed to be done, but I haven't had time for. I have another idea I can just spin up real quick. Like I built a POC of a pretty interesting project in like 3 days and partially over the weekend. And something like that would have taken me weeks of full-time work just to see if this idea was even worth pursuing. But now I can build it and I can show it to people and be like, hey, should we continue with this? So
Yep.
stuff like that just makes me think, I still have a ton of value even if AI writes all the code. And I wrote a Substack post about this, but it just is being cemented more and more for me. Every day I'm at work and I'm just like, nope, like the LLMs are not going to replace me anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the thought that I'm like, I was working on stuff. I'm working on the UCP agentic commerce integration. And what's cool about it is I feel like I'm actually outputting better software because I have more time to actually test and validate it versus spending all my time writing the code by hand. And
Yeah.
so like I'm spinning up an MCP server, I'm spinning up a REST API, I'm spinning up a whole new demo agent to test things more easily and quickly for it, and so that I can have full control over that and experiment more with it and test more of the edge cases. And so like I think it's actually producing a better output because I've been freed up to actually focus more on the output versus on writing the code by hand
Yeah.
and doing all that. So
And
yeah,
tests and documentation and all the things that
yeah,
sometimes we just didn't have time for because we had deadlines.
yeah. I mean, I spent
Or
today
trying
like,
something or be the LLM is like, no, I wouldn't have written it that way, but that's actually better, what the
yeah,
LLM did.
or it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
If I wouldn't have written
exactly.
it that way, if it, whether it's
Yeah,
better or not, does it really matter?
yeah,
Not really. I mean, as long as
yeah.
it's not a security leak and not a performance issue, and that's what we should be
Yeah.
reviewing for, like, it's
If you're not
okay.
at extreme scale, um, no, it really doesn't. And
Yeah.
sometimes it will matter in certain places, yes, but not in
Hmm.
like a web API. Most things don't matter.
Right. And you deal with that as you grow and you scale versus having to deal with it
Yeah,
immediately up front.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I'm doing more. I'm having more opportunities for more work presented, which is good. Um, I think it's the struggle of like balancing multiple things running at the same time, paralyzing everything in my brain and remembering. Because I think my biggest struggle is I would start something like on Friday of the week before, and then come Monday, something new pops up. And so that thing on Friday, because I'm not like writing it by hand, it's easier to leave my brain if it's
hmm
not something really big, right? But it's something necessary. And so I even went back into my PRs on a repo and I was like, oh, I forgot about that. I was working on
right.
that too, right? So, and it's something that needs to be done, but it's not like super high priority. So I think that's my biggest issue right now is that it's too easy for me to like get distracted by shiny new things as well. Like, oh, I can go do this. And, or somebody says they need something. Yeah, I can do that right now. But then I'm also, the flip side too is I'm getting annoyed and frustrated when people need something from me because I'm like, I have all these things running, I'm getting all this done, and I don't have time to answer questions or I don't want to take the time. And that's my own personality too. But like, those are my biggest, I think, frustrate or like struggles with all of it. Now, like, no, I don't think our jobs are going anywhere because of all these things, but now I'm struggling with the extra work or feeling like I'm running too many things or forgetting about stuff at the same time.
Yeah, but all those problems are why you will continue to be employed. Because if you didn't have a bunch of problems to solve, then there's no reason for you to be around, right?
It's
So
true.
it's job security.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Well, Wes, we were absolutely right, as usual. Thank you
as
for
all
listening
times,
to this episode, everyone. And we will see you in the next one.
see ya. Peace out.